multi-million-dollar bank accounts, private jets sitting on the runway, mansions with more bedrooms than most hotels, and in the garage, the kind of machinery most of us have only seen on a laptop wallpaper. Welcome to the wildest corner of modern football, where a casual Sunday drive can cost more than a mid-table transfer fee. Today on this channel, we're pulling back the garage doors on the top 10 most jaw-dropping supercars owned by football superstars right now. Not the boring executive sedans you spot in tunnel walks. Not the leased club cars every player gets in their contract. The private collection stuff. The kind of machines that get delivered on a flatbed truck at 3 in the morning, so nobody sees them arrive. Now, you might be thinking, I've watched 100 car videos before, why should I stick around for this one? Fair question. Here's the answer. Most of those videos hand you a price tag, throw up a photo, and move on. We're doing this completely differently. Every single car on this list comes with the story behind the purchase. The rare feature the owner probably forgot he paid extra for. The moment the player decided he wanted it. And in some cases, the drama that came after the tickets, the fines, the crashes, the celebrity friend who tried to buy the exact same model and got told no. This channel has spent weeks going through auction records, dealership leaks, garage tours, insurance disclosures, and every reliable interview we could pull. We're not guessing. We're not throwing rumors around. Every car you're about to see is documented. Every price tag is real. And every anecdote, as wild as some of them sound, checks out. Here's why this matters, and why you're going to want to watch to the very end. You already know footballers make an obscene amount of money. That's not the story. The story is what happens when a 24-year-old from a small town in France or Brazil or Norway suddenly gets handed enough cash to buy an entire street of houses, and instead spends it on a machine that produces more horsepower than a small aircraft. The choices these guys make with their fortunes say more about them than any post-match interview ever will. And one more thing before we start counting down. The car sitting at the very top of this list costs more than the entire annual budget of some professional football clubs. You read that right. More than an entire club's yearly spending. On one car, one driver, one private garage that only a handful of people on the planet have ever set foot inside. Stick with us, because as we work our way down from number 10 to number 1, the numbers get bigger. The stories get stranger. And by the time we get to the very top, you're going to see a machine so exclusive that the manufacturer flat out refused to sell it to anyone else in the world. We're kicking things off with a name you'll recognize immediately. A player who's still in his early 20s, has already won a Champions League, and just made a purchase that turned every luxury dealer in Madrid into his personal WhatsApp contact. He didn't buy a mansion. He didn't buy a yacht. He bought a machine that looks like a rolling cathedral and paid more than $500,000 for the privilege. Let's get into it. Number 10. At number 10, we have a player who wasn't even old enough to legally rent a car in some countries when he bought this thing. Jude Bellingham, the English midfielder who left Borussia Dortmund for Real Madrid in 2023 and immediately became one of the most marketable footballers on the planet. Bellingham signed a contract at the Bernabeu that pays him a reported €30 million a year before endorsements. Add in his boot deal, his fashion sponsorships, and his image rights, and you're looking at a young man pulling down close to $50 million a year at an age when most of us were still figuring out how to fill out a tax form. So what does a 20-something with that kind of paycheck buy first? A Rolls-Royce Cullinan black badge. And not just any Cullinan, a fully spec'd, blacked-out, custom interior monster that reportedly rolled off the Goodwood factory line with a price tag of just under $600,000 once all the personal touches were added. Let's talk about what makes this thing special. The Cullinan Black Badge is Rolls-Royce's most aggressive SUV. It runs a 6.75-liter twin-turbo V12 producing around 600 horsepower. It'll get from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.9 seconds, which is genuinely absurd for a vehicle that weighs almost 3 tons. And it does all of this while being so quiet inside that Rolls-Royce engineers actually had to add subtle noise cues so the driver wouldn't feel completely disconnected from the machine. The Black Badge trim is where things get interesting. It's Rolls-Royce's answer to their younger clientele, footballers, rappers, tech founders, who wanted the brand's luxury but with a sharper, darker aesthetic. The Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament is finished in high-gloss black chrome. The wheels are 22-inch forged units in a matching dark finish. Even the umbrella that slides out of the door, because yes, every Rolls-Royce has an umbrella built into the door, comes in a matching black. Bellingham's spec, according to Madrid-based supercar spotters who have photographed the car outside training multiple times, includes a two-tone interior with cream leather and dark blue accents, custom stitching in the headrests featuring his personal monogram, and a starlight headliner with a specific constellation configuration that Rolls-Royce will only create for individual buyers. That last option alone reportedly costs over $12,000 to add. Now here's the fun part. Bellingham has been photographed multiple times parking this car in Madrid, and Spanish tabloids have made a bit of a hobby out of tracking where he goes in it. The consensus: he mostly uses it for training runs. A $600,000 SUV as a daily driver, just to get to work. For context, the average Real Madrid supporter would need to save every euro of their annual salary for about 18 years to afford this car outright. Bellingham can afford one every single week of the season and still have money left over for lunch. And yet the Cullinan is only Bellingham's second most expensive machine. His actual daily luxury sits back at his house in La Moraleja, a Bentley Continental GT Speed finished in a bespoke color, matched to Real Madrid's home kit. Because when you're 20-something and playing for the biggest club on earth, subtle is simply not on the menu. But as extravagant as a $500,000 SUV sounds, we're just getting warmed up. Because the next player on this list drives something so technologically advanced that Ferrari had to bury Formula One engineering inside a road car to build it, and he bought one before he'd even turned 25. At number 9, we have the man who was supposed to be Ronaldo's replacement at Real Madrid, and who spent years fooling the entire football world into thinking he was the humble one. Kylian Mbappé. For most of his time at Paris Saint-Germain, Mbappé cultivated an image as the sensible superstar. While his teammate Neymar was posting photos of custom Lamborghinis, Mbappé was showing up to training in a Volkswagen Tiguan. A Tiguan, a middle-class family SUV. Journalists loved it. Sponsors loved it. Every marketing consultant in Europe pointed to Mbappé as the model of the modern, grounded footballer. Except that entire image was a very carefully managed narrative. Because behind the doors of his garage, first in Paris, now in Madrid, sits one of the most technologically advanced supercars Ferrari has ever built. The Ferrari SF90 Stradale. Let's break down what this machine actually is. The SF90 was Ferrari's first ever plug-in hybrid production car. When it launched, it was quite literally Ferrari's answer to the question, what happens if we throw every piece of Formula One technology we're legally allowed to sell into a single road car? The result is a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 combined with 3 electric motors, one on the rear axle, 2 on the front, producing a combined output of nearly 1,000 horsepower. 986 horsepower. In a car you can legally drive to the grocery store. It'll accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.4 seconds. 0 to 124 miles per hour in 6.7 seconds. It has a top speed of 211 miles per hour. And because it's a hybrid, you can silently glide out of your driveway on pure electric power for around 15 miles before the V8 wakes up, which is exactly the feature Mbappé's neighbors in Paris reportedly requested him to use after complaints about early morning engine noise. The base price of an SF90 Stradale is around $625,000. Mbappé's version, because of course it is an SF90 Assetto Fiorano, which is the track-focus variant with a stripped interior, titanium components, and racing-derived suspension. That package pushes the price closer to $800,000, and Ferrari only makes a small percentage of SF90S in the Assetto Fiorano trim. His color choice, spotted multiple times outside the Real Madrid training ground since his 2024 transfer, is Rosso Corsa, the classic Ferrari red. Bold move for a player who used to hide behind a Volkswagen. Here's the wild part. When French auto magazines got wind of Mbappé's actual car collection back in 2022, they published a piece revealing that his Tiguan was, in fact, a gift from Volkswagen as part of a sponsorship deal. The car he drove to training wasn't his taste. It was his contract. His real collection at the time already included a Mercedes-AMG GT, an Audi RS6 Avant, and the very quiet, very expensive Ferrari sitting in his home garage. The transfer to Real Madrid apparently opened the floodgates. Since arriving in Spain, Mbappé has added a Rolls-Royce Ghost and a bespoke Range Rover autobiography to his collection. But the SF90 remains the crown jewel, the machine he actually loves driving, and the one that quietly proves he's been playing the humble superstar character all along. And yet, for all its horsepower and hybrid wizardry, the SF90 is a factory production car. Ferrari built thousands of them. The next player on this list drives something so rare that Ferrari built only a few hundred units for the entire planet. And the man behind the wheel might just be the most unapologetically expensive human being in the history of European football. At number 8, we step back in time to a car that isn't just expensive, it's a piece of rolling art. Owned by a player who has never once in his career been accused of subtlety. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. The Swedish striker retired in 2023 after a career that took him through Ajax, Juventus, Inter, Barcelona, Milan, Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester United, LA Galaxy, and back to Milan for one final act. Along the way, he collected league titles in 4 different countries, a handful of continental cups, and, more relevantly for today's list, one of the strangest, most beautiful private car collections in professional sports. Nothing in Zlatan's garage tops the machine he bought himself as a birthday present. The Ferrari Monza SP2. Let's talk about what the Monza SP2 actually is. In 2018, Ferrari launched something called the Icona Series, a limited line of cars designed as modern tributes to their most iconic racing machines of the 1950s. The SP2 is a homage to the Ferrari 750 Monza and 860 Monza from the mid-50s, which is where the name comes from. The idea is a stripped-down, roofless, windshield-less two-seat barchetta that looks like it was pulled directly out of a black and white photograph. There is no roof. There is no windshield. There is no infotainment screen. There are 2 seats, a steering wheel, and a 6.5-liter, naturally aspirated V12 producing 810 horsepower, making it, at the time of launch, the most powerful road-legal V12 Ferrari had ever built. 0 to 60 miles per hour, 2.9 seconds. Top speed, over 186 miles per hour. And because there's no windshield, Ferrari designed a specific piece of engineering called the virtual windshield, a small aerodynamic deflector on the dashboard that redirects airflow up and over the driver's head at high speed, so you can theoretically drive it at 160 miles per hour without your face being surgically removed. Ferrari only built 499 units of the SP1 and a slightly higher number of SP2s combined, and they were all sold through an invitation-only program. You couldn't just walk into a Ferrari dealership and order one. Ferrari picked the buyers. Zlatan's Monza SP2 reportedly cost him $1.75 million before whatever custom specs he added. Given the man's personality, we can safely assume he added several. Photos that leaked from a Milan Supercar meet in 2022 showed his SP2 in a deep midnight blue with a tan leather interior and yellow accent stitching, the color combination reportedly inspired by the flag of Sweden. Here's the classic Zlatan story. When the Swedish transport agency published its annual report on unregistered luxury vehicles, Zlatan's Monza SP2 appeared on the list. He had failed to properly register the car for road use for several months. The fine for a Swedish citizen driving an unregistered vehicle can run into the tens of thousands of kronor. Zlatan reportedly paid it, in his own words, without noticing it left his account. That's the entire Zlatan philosophy in one anecdote. The Monza isn't even the only stunning car in his garage. He owns a Porsche 918 Spyder, a Ferrari Enzo, and a Lamborghini Aventador on top of it. But when you're Zlatan, you don't collect cars for the collection. You collect them because the moment they were built, you knew they existed, and you refused to let anyone else own them. And speaking of refusing to let anyone else own something, the next player on this list owns a car so rare that only 77 units exist in the entire world. And he's had it since long before he retired. At number 7, we move to a name that dominated an entire era of African football, and a car that has become almost mythical in the collector community. Samuel Eto'o, and his Aston Martin 1-77. For those who need a refresher, Eto'o is arguably the greatest African footballer of his generation, and depending on who you ask, the greatest ever. For African Footballer of the Year awards. 3 Champions League titles across Barcelona and Inter Milan, including the 2010 treble with Inter that made him the first player in history to win consecutive continental trebles at 2 different clubs. Over 300 career goals at the highest level. Now serving as the president of the Cameroonian Football Federation. Somewhere along the way, nobody's quite sure exactly when, though the general belief is around 2012 during his time in Russia at Anji Makachkala, Eto'o became the very quiet owner of an Aston Martin 1-77. Here's why that matters. The Aston Martin 1-77 is one of the rarest production supercars ever built. Aston Martin made exactly 77 units. That's the entire global production run. Ever. The name of the car, 1-77, is a direct reference to the fact that it's one of only 77 in existence. Every single unit was hand-built by a small team of engineers at Aston Martin's Gaydon facility in England. The carbon fiber monocoque chassis alone took over 100 hours to produce per car. The engine is a 7.3-liter naturally aspirated V12, at the time of launch, the largest and most powerful naturally aspirated engine Aston Martin had ever built, producing 750 horsepower. Top speed, 220 miles per hour. 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. All of this in a car that looks like it was carved out of a single piece of dark liquid metal. The original 2011 sticker price was $1.8 million. Today, thanks to their extreme rarity, verified auction sales of used 177s have crossed the $3 million mark. Ito OS 1-77, spotted several times in Cameroon and once, famously, at a wedding in Barcelona, is finished in a stealth matte black with dark chrome accents. It reportedly took Aston Martin nearly a full year to complete after his order was placed. Here's the part that makes it a legitimate collector's piece. All 77 1-77 owners were personally vetted by Aston Martin. This wasn't a walk-in-and-buy transaction. Prospective buyers were invited to the factory, interviewed, and had to demonstrate both the financial capacity and the cultural fit to own one. Aston Martin turned people down. Publicly wealthy people. Because the brand wanted their most exclusive car to end up in the hands of buyers who understood what it represented, not just what it cost. Ito being on that list is quietly one of the most prestigious things any African athlete has ever achieved outside the sporting arena. It puts him in a group of owners that includes royalty, tech billionaires, and a handful of celebrities. And yet in interviews, he almost never talks about it. In one rare mention during a Cameroonian television appearance, he was asked about his car collection and simply said, "Some things are private, but I take care of what I own." Sensible answer for a man whose garage also reportedly includes a Ferrari 599 GTB, a Bentley Continental Supersports, and a custom Mercedes-Maybach S680 that he uses when he's back in Cameroon. But rare as the 1-77 is, the next car on this list was built by a manufacturer that decided 77 units was too many. They made only 5, and they charged a footballer nearly $2 million for the privilege of owning one. At number 6, we arrive at the machine that quietly announced Karim Benzema had officially entered the Ronaldo and Neymar tier of extravagance. The Bugatti Veyron Pur Sang. Benzema needs very little introduction. Real Madrid's all-time leading goal scorer at the time of his 2023 departure to Saudi Arabia's Al Ittihad. Winner of 5 Champions Leagues. Winner of the 2022 Ballon d'Or, the moment when the football world finally publicly acknowledged what everyone inside Real Madrid had been saying for years about his quality. What most people don't realize about Benzema is that his private life is one of the most guarded in modern football. He almost never posts about his family. He rarely gives long interviews. His social media is curated with the discipline of a corporate press office. And yet, tucked away in a garage in Madrid, then reportedly shipped to his estate in Saudi Arabia after his 2023 transfer, sits one of the rarest Bugattis ever built. The Bugatti Veyron Pur Sang. Let's break down what the Pur Sang actually is. In 2007, Bugatti announced a special limited edition of the Veyron, the car that had already redefined what the word hypercar meant. The Pur Sang, which translates from French as thoroughbred, was designed to strip away everything decorative about the original Veyron and expose the raw materials underneath. No paint, no traditional finishes. Just polished aluminum bodywork over the carbon fiber structure with a black carbon fiber floor and under tray. The idea was that a Bugatti Veyron at its core was so beautifully engineered that hiding it under paint was almost a crime. So Bugatti built 5 Pur Sang units. 5. For the entire world. Under the hood, well, technically under multiple hoods and inside a mid-mounted engine bay, sits Bugatti's legendary 8-liter quad-turbocharged W16 engine, producing 1,001 horsepower. 0 to 60 miles per hour, 2.5 seconds. Top speed, 253 miles per hour. It required a special key, inserted at a specific angle, to unlock the top speed mode because Bugatti's engineers were concerned that the average owner might not survive using the full performance. Benzema's Pur Sang reportedly cost him $1.9 million at time of purchase. Given its rarity, the current market value is estimated to be significantly higher. Some auction estimates suggest it could sell for over $3 million today if he ever chose to part with it. He hasn't, and he probably won't. Here's the detail that most casual fans miss about this car. Bugatti's purse sang isn't just rare because they only made 5. It's rare because Bugatti has publicly stated it will never build another one in the same specification. The tooling, the specific supplier for the polished aluminum body panels, and the specific hand finishers who assembled them have all since retired or moved on. If Benzema's purse sang is ever damaged, restoring it would require Bugatti to essentially rebuild a lost manufacturing process. Benzema's other garage highlights include a Ferrari 458 Italia, a Rolls-Royce Cullinan, a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, and a Range Rover SV Autobiography. Solid, luxurious choices. But the purse sang is the piece, the one that separates him from every other footballer who owns a Bugatti. There are dozens of Veyrons in professional athlete garages around the world. There are only 5 purse sangs. And one of them belongs to a French forward from Lyon who used to be told for years he wasn't world-class. Nothing sends a message quite like buying one of 5 in existence. But if you thought owning one of 5 was exclusive, wait until you see what number 5 on this list bought, because it belongs to arguably the greatest football player of all time, and even he had to fight for the privilege of ordering it. At number 5, we have the smallest and the greatest, Lionel Messi. And a car that, even in the exclusive world of Paganis, is considered a unicorn. The Pagani Zonda Tricolor. Messi's story doesn't need retelling. 8 Ballons d'Or. Argentina's 2022 World Cup captain. Barcelona legend. Currently in the sunset chapter of his career at Inter Miami, where alongside his football contract, he holds an ownership stake in the club and reportedly earns close to $60 million per year across salary, image rights, and commercial partnerships. But long before Miami, back when he was still at Barcelona, Messi decided to add something very specific to his garage. He didn't want just any Pagani. He wanted a Pagani Zonda Tricolor. Here's why that matters. The Pagani Zonda is one of the most beloved supercars ever built by enthusiasts, a machine handmade in a tiny factory in San Cesario sul Panaro, Italy, by a small team assembled by Argentine-born designer Horacio Pagani. Every Zonda is essentially a bespoke piece, handcrafted with individual customizations for each buyer. Pagani doesn't do mass production. They do commissions. The Tricolor was a very special edition, released in 2010 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Italian Air Force's aerobatic display team, the Freck Tricolori. Pagani built exactly 3 units. 3 for the entire world. Each one is finished in exposed carbon fiber bodywork with red, white, and green accents mirroring the Italian flag, the same colors carried by the Freck Tricolori jets during their air shows. Under the mid-mounted cover sits a 6-liter Mercedes-AMG naturally aspirated V12 producing 670 horsepower, mated to a 6-speed sequential gearbox. 0 to 60 miles per hour, 3.4 seconds. Top speed, over 210 miles per hour. The original price when the Tricolor launched was $1.75 million. Given only 3 units exist, verified private sales in recent years have cleared 3 million. Now here's the fun part of the Messi story. When Pagani announced they were building only 3 Tricolors, the queue of interested buyers reportedly ran into the dozens. Pagani, like Aston Martin with the 1-77, had to personally select who got one. Messi, through an intermediary, reportedly reached out directly to Horacio Pagani himself and made his case. According to Italian automotive press coverage from 2011, the 2 men met, spent an afternoon talking about design and craftsmanship, and by the end of it Messi had a Tricolor reserved in his name. He took delivery of the car later that year. It sat in his private garage at his Castelldefels home outside Barcelona for the better part of a decade and was famously spotted only a handful of times, always driven by Messi himself, always at low speed, always looking like it was being handled with the care of a museum piece. Because that's what the Tricolor is. It's not a track weapon. It's not a daily driver. It's a piece of automotive art, and Messi treats it accordingly. His broader collection is famously modest by superstar standards. A Range Rover, an Audi RS6, a Cadillac Escalade for family duty in Miami. Nothing flashy, because Messi, unlike most of the players on this list, has never used cars as part of his public identity. The Tricolor is the exception. It's the one machine in his garage that reveals him as a true collector, a man who understands that some objects transcend their price tag. But as we get closer to number 1, price tags start entering territory that even the most jaded car enthusiast finds difficult to process. And the next car on this list belongs to a defender who bought a piece of pure motoring history, not to drive, but to keep. At number 4, we swap out the modern hypercars for something older, wiser, and in the eyes of many collectors, more beautiful than anything built in the last 50 years. The Ferrari 275 GTB. Owned by a man whose taste in cars might just outclass his taste in fashion. John Terry. Terry is a name that carries weight in English football regardless of which team you support. Longtime Chelsea captain, 5-time Premier League winner, Champions League winner in 2012, Europa League winner, and since retirement, a man who has quietly built one of the most impressive classic car collections in British sport. The crown jewel of that collection is a 1965 Ferrari 275 GTB. Now, if you're wondering why an old Ferrari from the 60s is competing for position on a list dominated by modern hypercars costing millions of dollars, here's the answer. Because in the world of collector cars, the Ferrari 275 GTB isn't just old, it's holy. It's one of the most desirable Ferraris ever built. Enzo Ferrari's team designed it as a road-going grand tourer that could double as a competitive race car, and the result is a machine that many enthusiasts consider the definitive expression of what a Ferrari should be. Under the long, sculpted hood sits a 3.3-liter Colombo V12 producing around 280 horsepower, which sounds modest by modern standards, until you remember this car was built in the mid-60s, weighs barely over 1,100 kilograms, and produces one of the most beautiful engine notes ever recorded. Top speed, 160 miles per hour. 0 to 60, around 6 seconds. Numbers that were, at the time, considered supernatural. Ferrari only built around 450 275 GTBs across its entire production run from 1964 to 1968. Every single one is now considered a museum-grade collectible. Verified auction sales for well-preserved examples routinely clear $2.5 million, with the most desirable variants, like the aluminum body long-nose versions, pushing well past $4 million. Terry's 275 GTB, according to British Motoring Press, cost him around £2.2 million. That's dollar equivalent, north of $2.8 million. It's finished in the classic Rosso Corsa red with a tan leather interior, the way Enzo Ferrari himself would have wanted it delivered. Here's the story behind the purchase that's become part of Terry's post-retirement legend. He reportedly bought the car in the immediate aftermath of a difficult period at Chelsea, a stretch of disappointing form, and a heavy defeat that had left the entire club deflated. According to friends quoted in the Daily Mail's motoring section, Terry decided the best way to lift his mood was to finally pull the trigger on a car he'd been quietly eyeing for years. The 275 GTB had been on his personal wish list since he first saw one at Goodwood as a teenager. When the opportunity came up to buy a matching numbers example, meaning the engine, chassis, and body all left the factory together, he took it. The car doesn't get driven much. It stays in a climate-controlled garage at his Surrey estate, brought out only for select classic car events and the occasional private test drive on quiet English backroads. Terry has been quoted as saying the 275 GTB is not really a car anymore. It's a painting that happens to have wheels. Which, for a man who once wore the captain's armband for both England and Chelsea, is a surprisingly poetic assessment. But then, John Terry has always had layers most people never bother to look for. And speaking of layers, the next player on this list bought his car in a color combination that his own club forbade him from using. Yes, really. At number 3, we head to London, where the Premier League's most beloved forward has been quietly hiding a machine so exclusive that Ferrari refused to make one for a lot of people who tried to order it. Son Heung-min and his Ferrari LaFerrari. Son is one of those rare modern footballers who has managed to build a global brand without ever seeming to try. Tottenham captain for years, Golden Boot winner, Asian Cup fixture, endorsement deals across Adidas, Calvin Klein, Volvo, and roughly a dozen Korean domestic brands that turn everything he touches into a bestseller. His estimated career earnings, including endorsements, are north of $150 million, and unlike many players on this list, he still has years of prime earning ahead of him. Which brings us to his most prized possession, the Ferrari LaFerrari. Let's talk about what this car actually is, because LaFerrari as a name doesn't quite capture how significant this machine is in Ferrari's history. In 2013, Ferrari announced a limited production hybrid hypercar that would sit at the very top of their entire lineup. The company's flagship. The one car they built to demonstrate every piece of engineering knowledge they had accumulated over 7 decades. They gave it a name that translates simply as the Ferrari, as in, if you had to pick one Ferrari to represent the entire brand, this is it. Ferrari built exactly 499 LaFerraris. Every single one was pre-sold before production even began, and Ferrari personally vetted every single buyer. To be eligible to purchase a LaFerrari, you had to already own at least 5 other Ferraris and have a documented history of loyalty to the brand. Cash was not enough. You had to earn it. Son qualified. The LaFerrari specifications are borderline unreasonable. A 6.3-liter naturally aspirated V12 combined with a Formula One-derived hybrid electric system, producing a combined 963 horsepower. 0 to 60 miles per hour, 2.4 seconds. 0 to 124 miles per hour, under 7 seconds. Top speed, over 217 miles per hour. And that hybrid system, called HYKRS, was directly ported from Ferrari's Formula One program at the time. Original sticker price, $1.42 million. Current market value for well-maintained examples, comfortably north of $3.5 million, with certain rare color combinations pushing towards $5 million at private auction. And here's the story that made Son's LaFerrari a talking point in North London. Ferrari's default color for the LaFerrari is Rosso Corsa, the classic red. It's the color most owners choose because it's the color the launch cars were finished in. When Son placed his order, he specified Rosso Corsa. Tottenham Hotspur reportedly reached out. According to reporting that circulated in the English press and later in Korean media, Spurs made a very quiet, very informal request through Son's representatives. Could he possibly choose any other color? Because a Tottenham player driving a bright red Ferrari through North London was going to attract exactly one specific joke about a certain neighboring club. Son, being Son, laughed and switched his order to a deep midnight blue with a matte finish. It's the only LaFerrari in that specific color combination on the planet. His broader garage includes a Maserati Levante SUV, an Audi R8 Coupe, a Bentley Continental GT, a Range Rover Sport, and a Rolls-Royce Ghost that he uses primarily for airport runs. Comprehensive, diverse, and every single one of them completely eclipsed by the midnight blue Ferrari that reportedly sits under a custom cover in his private garage, driven only on very special occasions. But even a LaFerrari, one of the most exclusive Ferraris ever built, is about to be dwarfed by what comes next. Because the number 2 spot on this list belongs to a player whose entire relationship with money can only be described as beautifully absurd. And his most expensive car cost him more than a Champions League winner's bonus check. At number 2, we arrive at the most extravagant player of our generation. The man who has never seen a dollar he didn't want to convert into an experience, an object, or a story. Neymar Jr. and his Lamborghini Veneno. Neymar's spending habits are the stuff of modern football legend. Yachts moored in Ibiza, a private helicopter for beach runs to Mangaratiba, a gaming setup at his Rio compound that reportedly cost more than most Brazilian houses. And, of course, a car collection that reads like a manufacturer's dream customer list. But even in a garage full of headline machines, one car stands above the rest. The Lamborghini Veneno. Let's establish what the Veneno is, because the name doesn't do justice to how ridiculous this car is. In 2013, Lamborghini celebrated its 50th anniversary by asking a simple question. If we removed every commercial constraint and just built the most absurd Lamborghini we could imagine, what would it look like? The answer was the Veneno. Lamborghini built exactly 3 Veneno coupes. 3 for the entire planet. Plus a small run of roadster variants and 1 factory display car, meaning the total global production run, coupes and roadsters combined, was just 9 units. Ever. Neymar owns one of them. The Veneno's specs read like a physics experiment. A 6.5-liter naturally aspirated V12 producing 740 horsepower. 0 to 60 miles per hour, 2.8 seconds. Top speed, 221 miles per hour. The bodywork is entirely carbon fiber, sculpted for maximum aerodynamic downforce, and the visual effect is somewhere between a fighter jet and a movie prop that escaped from a science fiction film. The original price when Lamborghini launched the Veneno was $4.5 million. Today, thanks to their extreme rarity, verified auction and private sale values for the Veneno regularly clears $7 million. The most recent Veneno to trade hands publicly sold for over $8.5 million. Neymar's Veneno was reportedly acquired around 2015 during his Barcelona years through a private broker network that specializes in matching ultra-limited hypercars with celebrity buyers. He's rarely photographed in it. The Veneno is not a car you take to the training ground, but Brazilian tabloids have captured it a handful of times at Neymar's Mangaratiba estate, being loaded and unloaded from a covered transport truck. And that's not even the most talked about car in his garage. Because Neymar also owns a Lykan Hypersport, the same car featured in Fast and Furious 7, which cost him a reported $3.4 million at the time of purchase. He owns a Ferrari 458 Italia, a Porsche Panamera, an Aston Martin Vulcan, of which only 24 were ever built, that reportedly set him back another $2.3 million. Add it all up and Neymar's private car collection is worth somewhere between $15 and $20 million, depending on current market valuations. His single most expensive machine? The Veneno. But the total sum of what he's parked at his various properties around the world could fund a small football club's entire annual budget. Here's the anecdote that captures Neymar perfectly. When he took delivery of the Veneno, one of Brazil's largest auto magazines requested an interview about the purchase. Neymar reportedly declined. Then, a week later, he posted a photo of himself sitting on the hood of the car on Instagram, captioned simply with a smiling emoji. No context. No details, just the image. That single post generated more engagement in 24 hours than the entire magazine's monthly readership. That is Neymar. That has always been Neymar. The most watched player of his generation, who somehow manages to turn every private purchase into a public spectacle without giving a single interview about it. But even a 9 of 9 Lamborghini Veneno cannot compete with what sits at the top of this list. Because number one isn't just the most expensive car in football. It's arguably the most expensive new car ever sold, period. And it belongs to a man who's already broken every other record football has to offer. At number one, the moment we've been building to. The single most expensive car in professional football, reportedly worth more than most players earn in an entire career. Cristiano Ronaldo. And the Bugatti La Voiture Noire. Ronaldo, at this point in history, doesn't need introduction. 5 Ballons d'Or. 5 Champions Leagues. All-time top scorer in Champions League history, in European Championship history, in international football history. Estimated net worth north of $500 million, boosted in recent years by the biggest contract ever signed in football, his 2023 move to Al Nassr, which reportedly pays him over $200 million per year, including commercial rights. His car collection has always been part of his identity. He owns Bugattis, Bentleys, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Rolls-Royces, Aston Martins, McLarens, and one particularly rare Bugatti Sanadiosi, of which only 10 were built worldwide. That alone would place him among the most exclusive car collectors on the planet. But the crown of his collection, and the reason he sits at number one on this list, is a car so rare that Bugatti has publicly stated they will never make another one. The Bugatti La Voiture Noire, which, in French, simply means the black car. Let's talk about what this machine actually is. In 2019, Bugatti unveiled a one-off hypercar at the Geneva Motor Show. Not a limited edition, not a small production run. A single car. One. For one specific customer. It was a modern tribute to the Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic of the late 1930s, one of the most legendary and mysterious cars in automotive history, 4 of which were built, and one of which famously disappeared during the Second World War and has never been found. Bugatti built La Voiture Noire as their homage to that lost Atlantic. A single hand-built, one-of-one hypercar, finished in a deep gloss black over exposed carbon fiber, powered by Bugatti's monstrous 8-liter quad-turbocharged W16 engine, producing 1,500 horsepower. 0 to 60 miles per hour, under 2.5 seconds. Top speed, electronically limited to 260 miles per hour, but reportedly capable of pushing well beyond that number. The price. The price. La Voiture Noire sold for €11 million before taxes, which after French VAT and various customization surcharges brought the final invoice price to approximately $18.7 million. At the time of its sale in 2019, it became the most expensive new car ever sold in the world. The buyer was kept anonymous for years. Bugatti refused to confirm the identity. Then, over the following 2 years, multiple credible sources, including French sports business publications and a leaked shipping manifest from a specialized supercar transport company, pointed to Cristiano Ronaldo as the buyer. Ronaldo himself has never confirmed the purchase publicly. He has also never denied it. And a handful of photos taken outside his Turin residence during his Juventus years appeared to show a covered vehicle matching La Voiture Noire's exact silhouette being delivered under armed private security. Whether or not you consider that airtight proof, the automotive collector community treats Ronaldo's ownership of La Voiture Noire as an open secret. And the numbers make sense. It's the kind of purchase that only makes emotional and economic sense to a very small number of people on Earth, and Cristiano Ronaldo is very much on that shortlist. To put the price in perspective, $18.7 million would cover the annual operating budget of several Portuguese Primeira Liga clubs. It would pay every player on a mid-table championship squad for an entire season, including bonuses. It's more than the entire net worth of many current international footballers. And Ronaldo bought it. One car, one driver, one garage that only he and a handful of trusted people have ever seen inside. That is the pinnacle of what football wealth looks like in 2026. Not a mansion, not a yacht. A single black hypercar, hand-built for one buyer, sitting in a climate-controlled garage somewhere in Madeira or Turin or Riyadh, waiting for the rare moments when its owner decides to take it out. But before we close this out, there's one car we haven't mentioned. A car that, if the rumors are true, would blow every single machine on this list out of the water. Stick with us for one more minute, because what's coming next is either the greatest football car story ever told, or the greatest football car story never confirmed. Before we wrap up, let's talk about the car that would technically obliterate this entire list if the rumors ever get confirmed. Back in 2016, a very unusual auction took place at Arc Curial in Retromobile, Paris. On the block was a 1957 Ferrari 335S Spider Scalier, one of only 4 ever built, and the specific chassis that legendary driver Sir Stirling Moss had piloted during multiple Grand Prix events, including the Cuban Grand Prix of 1958. The car is a piece of racing history, a rolling museum artifact, a machine that many collectors consider among the top 10 most significant Ferraris ever built. The bidding started at 20 million euros. It closed at a hammer price of 32 million euros, approximately $36 million once fees were added, making it, at the time, the most expensive Ferrari ever sold at auction and one of the most expensive cars ever sold in any format anywhere. The buyer was anonymous. Then the rumors started. Spanish tabloids, followed by Argentine motoring press, followed by a handful of Italian collector publications, all began pointing to the same name: Lionel Messi. According to those reports, Messi was one of 2 final bidders on the Ferrari 335S Spider Scaglietti that day, and the other final bidder, allegedly, was Cristiano Ronaldo. If those reports are accurate, and to this day, neither player has ever confirmed or denied the story, then Messi beat Ronaldo in a bidding war for one of the rarest Ferraris ever built, which would mean the greatest football rivalry of our generation extended, in one very expensive moment, into the private car auction world. Neither Messi nor Ronaldo has spoken publicly about the 335S. The car has never appeared in any of Messi's known garages. It may sit in a private storage facility. It may not be his at all. The story may simply be an elegant piece of Argentine motoring folklore. But the fact that the rumor has persisted for nearly a decade, with new claimed sightings every year, tells you everything about how much football fans want the story to be true. That's the strange, wonderful, and slightly ridiculous world of superstar car collecting. Everything is documented, and yet the biggest secrets are the ones the players never confirm. So, 10 cars, hundreds of millions of dollars combined. From Bellingham's daily driver Rolls-Royce Cullinan to Ronaldo's rumored $18 million Bugatti one of one. Every one of them a statement. Every one of them a story. Every one of them a reminder that when you get paid football superstar money, ordinary rules about how humans spend their income politely walk out the door. Now, here's what we want to hear from you. Which one would you actually take home if someone handed you the keys tomorrow? Would you go for the pure exclusivity of the Pagani Zonda tricolor? The raw art of the Ferrari 275 GTB? The bragging rights of the Bugatti La Voiture Noire? Or would you play it smart, cash out the machine, and buy a small island instead? Drop your pick in the comments below. We read every single one, and the debates that happen down there are honestly half the reason this channel exists. If you made it this far, do us one quick favor before you go. Hit that like button. It genuinely helps us more than you'd think. Subscribe to the channel. We drop new football deep dives every single week. And if you're the kind of person who watched all the way to the end of a video about supercars, you're exactly the audience we build for. And ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. We've already got some absolute wild stories coming. The mansions, the yachts, the private jets, the failed business investments. Football wealth has layers, and we're just getting started peeling them back. Until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.